With just a little bit of research, you'll find that many health professionals and mental health professionals, doctors and psychologists, even heart doctors, cardiologists, counselors, family therapists, all sorts of different people, they all agree that forgiveness is really good for our health. Many say, even whether or not it's a simple argument with your spouse or a long time resentment that you're holding against someone, that resentment and that argument can actually go deep down into us and affect our physical health. And the same research reveals a simple act of forgiveness can actually produce big rewards, significant rewards. It can lower heart problems, the risk of heart problems. It can improve our sleep. It can lower our cholesterol. It lowers our blood pressure. Forgiveness can reduce anxiety and depression and stress. And this is especially true the older we grow and the wiser we get. For several weeks, we've been talking about being created with a purpose with passion and intentionality, that we've been designed, we've been created. And I've conveyed my own personal belief that we have a creator who's designed us, and we've developed this group experience in mind with that thought. And so we've talked about being born with a purpose. We've talked about being born for relationships, and we've been talking about being born to make a difference, born to live generously and to love abundantly. And so this week we're going to talk about the ability to forgive freely. Nearly all of us have experienced some sort of pain, disappointment, betrayal, abandonment, abuse. We've all experienced being hurt by somebody in our lives. And whatever our experience is, it can affect us deeply, deep down in us. And then when someone comes along in our life and they say, listen, you need to forgive freely. I get it. Forgiveness gets a little messy, and forgiveness is a little bit complicated. Forgiveness can be a real life struggle. And part of the reason that we don't like to talk about forgiveness, and this is even true for the church, because we've heard this phrase over and over, you've got to forgive and you've got to, you could probably guess it, forget. What a terrible way to strive to forgive. It's one thing to forgive, but then the thought to totally forget about it, forget about all the wrongs that we faced or all the wrongs that have been done to us, that doesn't even seem possible. It's impossible. And so it's difficult to selectively forget the things in our past, isn't it? You can't just take something out and turn it off. This is like having a surgery and then spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to have the scar removed, actually never getting the scar removed. And I just believe often our scars serve as a reminder of maybe something crazy we did in the past. How many of you have a scar on your body from something crazy? You know, the bike ride that you took that one jump and it created problems for you. Or how about the time that you were snowboarding, right? Or whatever it might be. We have scars, and these scars remind us of something that happened. I have a couple of significant scars. I was bit by a German Shepherd when I was 8 years old, and I have 2 massive scars on my right leg. Or I remember even being 4 or 5 years old lighting matches and having the head of a match land on my wrist. And I have a scar that I often see, especially when I'm writing, as a constant reminder. And so the idea of forgiving and forgiving insinuates that I have to forget my past wounds, that I have to leave them behind. And the problem is, our past wounds can actually teach us. They teach us how to avoid similar situations in the future, and our wounds can remind us where we've come from and what our experiences have been. They can actually help us encourage other people, to be helpful to other people, to show compassion to others who have had similar experiences like we have. And so for many of us, even though we might not pay attention to the wounds, or even give much thought to the wrongdoers or the wound givers, our bodies remember and create challenges in our everyday lives, especially when we hold on to that unforgiveness and that resentment. And so giving and then seeking forgiveness can be an incredible, freeing experience. More so than just forgetting, forgiveness is what's freeing. Forgiveness doesn't erase the wrongs, rather it frees all the people involved, including ourselves. And so I would argue that forgiveness doesn't always mean or lead to reconciliation, although that might be something we want. It might not be wise for us to reconnect or to reconcile with the person who hurt us. But this is what I know. forgiveness is a decision that we all get to make. You get to make it and I get to make it. And often the offender may not desire forgiveness. They may not change their behaviors the way they should. And reconciliation may not be an outcome of the forgiveness. But I do know this. You and I, we've been born to forgive. As a matter of fact, Jesus said, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute us. Or maybe another way to say it is love our enemies and pray for those who did us wrong. For a lot of people, this is why they struggle with faith. This is why they struggle with the concept of Jesus and even the church. And often I find people, they just need to be reminded sometimes. And so I want to pause and I just want to remind you that whatever happened to you, whatever hurt you've experienced, whatever abuse that you have had to endure, whatever has gone on in your life and in your past where somebody let you down, somebody turned their back on you, somebody betrayed you, somebody gossiped about you, somebody stabbed you in the back. I just want you to know that that stuff should have never happened. That's not what we were created for. And so I know that I may not have created that pain in your life, but I want you to know that I want to represent somebody who just says to you, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. What a painful experience it was, and how horrible it was when people made you feel crazy and made you feel like out of touch. You were made for more than that. So I acknowledge that it is, when it comes to forgiveness, sometimes we're asking a very difficult thing. We're requiring something great. So I want to just break it down for a moment. One of the most misunderstood principles of forgiveness is we think that we have to keep putting up with the hurt, keep putting up with the pain, just keep going back. And I want you to know that's not true. Forgiving doesn't mean that you're going to let it happen again and again. Forgiveness doesn't mean that you're going to go put yourself back in the same place where someone is going to hurt you and continue to do the things that they've done. No. Forgiveness is about forgiving the way God forgives us. I love how Dr. Henry Cloud says this in the book Boundaries. He says, the Bible is clear about two principles. One, we always need to forgive. And then two, we don't always achieve reconciliation. He says this, forgiveness is something that we do in our own hearts. We release somebody from the debt that they owe us. We write off the person's debt, and she or he, they no longer owe us anymore. We no longer condemn them. They are clean. Only one party is needed for forgiveness, and the one party is me. The one party is you. The person who owes me a debt does not have to ask for forgiveness because it is the work of grace in my own heart. I love how Cloud puts it. You see, forgiveness is the entire reason Jesus came to earth. John wrote about Jesus hanging on the cross. And as Jesus died on the cross, right before he took his last breath, he shouted and he said, "It's finished." And the it is about the process of forgiveness. It's the process of forgiveness that God sent Jesus, his one and only Son, to fulfill, to complete this promise. There are dozens of verses in the 89 chapters of the Gospels that is talking about Jesus' mission on earth to provide and give us forgiveness. And I believe Jesus is our most excellent example of forgiveness. See, many of us, we're living with this bitter root, a root of bitterness. And we've not completely been aware of it because we've learned how to live with it. We've learned how to function with it. We've learned how to continue to hold a grudge. And the root of bitterness that exists, it's growing deep, deep down into the soil of my hurt, and that hurt hasn't been addressed. And so there's a verse in the Bible that says, love keeps no record of wrongs. But we all know bitterness keeps detailed records, right? Detailed. We can tell you the details of those moments where we've been hurt so bad. He did this, she did that, she said, they did. This root of bitterness is like a cancer in our soul, and it just eats away at us. It chews us away, and the root of bitterness hurts our relationship with other people. It hurts our relationship with God. And so why in the world would anyone, knowing what we know about this, why would anyone go around holding a grudge that only hurts ourselves? Well, why would you go around holding a grudge that ultimately is only eating away at your own soul and destroying your own life? Nelson Mandela, He said this. He said, resentment is like drinking poison and then hoping it kills your enemies. Won't work very well, will it? If you are in bondage of bitterness, I pray God would touch your heart today. I really do. And that He would do a miraculous work and start healing the hurt and the pain that exists, the justifiable hurt and pain because you were done wrong. That He would begin healing that pain. And as we have experienced forgiveness freely, that we would begin freely forgiving other people. That's my prayer for you today.